Hey, welcome back. This is Float on Air, episode 10, already at 10 weeks. Thank you for joining us. As always, this is the show where we talk about all things flight, aerospace, and more specifically, airships. We kind of like to look at the history of flight through the lens of the airship industry, but we do cover a lot of different topics. My name is Bowen Belmer. I'm the Chief Business Development Officer at Float Air, joined by Nick Rogers and Ryan Condren. It's a great episode, as always. We talk more about World War I and the early World War I time period, and then dive into some news about our company Float, and also some other more broad airship industry news. So with that, let's jump into it. Cue the music.
For over 200 years, we have chased the sky. Gravity has tested us, but it has never defeated us. You're listening to Float on Air. Lift off, float on.
Episode 10 of Float on Air. Let me just check and make sure, because I forgot, that my microphone is coming through the right place, and it is. Okay, so 2 weeks in a row of good audio, which is huge for the program. 2 weeks since our last oopsie. Yeah, exactly. What's going on, Nick? How are you?
I'm good. Busy week. TEDx is, as ever, ramping up. It's only 6 months or so away now, so it's it's felt real from the beginning, to be honest with you. But we've got more sponsors coming on. We announced one today, a local law firm in Orlando. All going well.
Nice. No free ads, but if you do want to sponsor Float on Air as well, we will mention your name. No, I'm just kidding. But no, that's awesome. That's great that it's coming along. Definitely keep us updated with anything you're able to share, and we will. I can't wait to watch all the talks. It's gonna be a good time.
Yeah, that's gonna be great.
That's great. I'm glad things are going well. Things are good on our side too. Rolling along with Float. No huge update internally this week. Let's dive into Float on Air stuff. I know we talked about the early days of World War I last week and the full transition from airships being mostly entertainment and exploration, and now becoming weapons. I mean, there's no other way to frame it, really, or at least assisting weapon systems.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And I mean, we ended last year with last episode with at the end of the beginning of the war, basically, and we had the very first proposal to actually bomb Britain by the Germans, bomb Britain with airships, was made in the first month of the war, and we had a guy called Alfred von Tirpitz. We've met him before. He had massive beard, head of the German Navy, typically very anti Zeppelins in the beginning, but he came to see that the success of if the Zeppelins would have success, it wouldn't just be because they caused damage, but because they would have a significant effect on British morale. He said it would diminish the enemy's determination to prosecute the war. So that was the justification. But we saw in the last episode how in the early months of the war, the army airships in particular, which were flying low and were vulnerable to small arms fire, were really quite unsuccessful, and the Germans lost a whole bunch of airships in the first months of the war, not really sort of working out how they should be properly used. But the German Navy were quite clear. And there's a guy called Captain Peter Strasser, who was commanding the German naval airships at the time. And listeners will remember that he said that airships should fly high, ideally at night or in cloud cover, and they should be dropping bombs and acting as psychological weapons. So they needed to get approval from Kaiser Wilhelm to actually start this campaign against Britain. He was a bit hesitant. Again, I think we discussed this last week. He was very closely connected by blood to the British royal family. He had significant ties to England and respect for England. And also, I think he worried about the escalation impact. If they start bombing British cities and killing British civilians with Zeppelins, what might the British do in response? It's an unknown. But he does approve the initial campaign in January 1915. And I mean, over the year, there is this sort of initial pretense of, well, we'll bomb Britain, but we won't bomb London. And then there's a thing in February of, well, we'll bomb the east end of London, where the docks are, the port of London. But then, quite quickly, any pretense of restraint is abandoned. I mean, this is war. It's World War One. It's hell, and they just go all in, and they are intentional strategic bombing. This is a campaign of psychological intimidation as well as an attempt at destroying military targets. They basically they want to kill as many British people as they can, instill fear, and the thinking was knock Britain out the war by just completely eliminating the country's morale. So that was the attempt.
And was this like pretty indiscriminate, Nick?
Yes, and we'll see why, and that's simply technology. Navigation techniques are not good enough. Bomb aiming techniques are not good enough, and in the end, it is just effectively random as to what's being hit and who's being killed. And often the people who are being killed are very, very young children, innocent civilians who've got nothing to do with the war. It's not pleasant, but then, and strategic bombing in any sense is not pleasant.
Yeah, never really is.
So we had the first attempt at attacking Britain was on 13th of January 1915, and in a pattern that we've already seen, and in a pattern that will continue, it was unsuccessful because of the weather. So again, even though the Zeppelins are in a different role, they're still vulnerable to conditions, and the operational side of running and managing these raids is fragile. A few days later, we had the first successful raid on Britain, and this was targeted at the Humber estuary. This is in the northeast of England. Hull is the big town on the Humber, but you've got wind affecting the outcomes of these raids. So the Zeppelins that were attacking, there were two of them. They were blown south by the wind, and they ended up attacking Norfolk, Great Yarmouth, Sheringham, Kings Lynn, the villages around the north coast of Norfolk. 4 people killed, 16 injured. And the damage that they caused in modern terms was about £860,000. So probably, well, that'll be over $1 million worth of damage caused. So this will have been, a massive event in that part of the world. I mean, East Anglia, Norfolk, Great Yarmouth, they're quite sleepy areas, not used to having excitement like this. So it would have been it was a massive event, and it caused shockwaves in Britain, like horror that this had happened, and all kinds of rumours were going around that, for example, German agents were using the headlights of their cars to signal targets to Zeppelins, and this is, I think, just more evidence of how overblown a lot of this stuff was, because they weren't doing anything like this. But I suppose it also does link to the fact that people perhaps were aware that the Zeppelins were having problems with targeting, and we'll see that this is a theme that continues.
That's exactly what I was just thinking, Nick. I was just thinking how you were saying it drifted off course just because of the wind and just like the nature of airships, and at the time not having great control. And how crappy it is to be one of the 4 people that died just because the wind happened to blow this thing off course, and they're like, oh, we're just going to drop the bombs anyway. So, may they land where they do.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, they've been blown south. They've seen lights of a town, and they've attacked. They've need to drop their bombs somewhere.
Ryan, I think we got you in here. Can you hear us?
Yep, I can hear you now. I was really struggling today to get everything hooked together. You got Bluetooth and webcams and USB-C connections, and some of the stuff syncs, some of the stuff doesn't. Sounded like I landed right into the middle of a World War battle here, though.
Yeah, we are bombing Britain at the moment
All right.
in our Zeppelins.
We
Yeah,
cannot condone this behavior at Float Air, but
No,
it's an interesting story.
no.
yeah. Well, I like Palmer Luckey's stance on this. So I was listening to an interview with him. Nick, are you familiar with Palmer? He's the founder of Anduril.
Yes, yeah,
So he was asked this question in an interview recently I was watching, which was basically like like the morality of like what they're building. Like, how does he feel about the fact that like these are weapon systems and things like this? And his answer was basically that if you look at these systems as deterrents and you build a good enough deterrent, then there doesn't need to be conflict. In a sense, like he looks at it like, well, if we have the biggest possible stick and we deter World War III from happening, like the most important thing we can do is deter the war from happening, not actually execute on it. And sometimes that takes the best available technology to do.
Hasn't that been said about pretty much every major new military technology since who knows when? That the I don't think anyone really said it about the Zeppelin, but when you had long range aircraft able to bomb wherever they wanted, well, that's it. That's the end of war. There's no point in fighting anymore. The nuclear bomb, they said the same thing about that.
Yeah, although so far,
unfortunately,
knock on wood, I really hope this doesn't age poorly, but so far, there's only been the one instance of nuclear bombing. It has been a one and done for a historically long period of time. I mean, 80 years approximately. So
if there's one thing we want to age well from this episode,
I would love for that to age well. That would, and I'm acknowledging that there's always risk that it doesn't age well, just for the record of everyone listening. But I would love for it to age well. But yeah, I hear you. I mean, I think that that's kind of largely been a justification for a lot of military technologies, and it was just interesting. He framed it much more eloquently than I just did, but it was just an interesting stance, and it was in response to somebody asking if how he compares to like an Elon who's working on interplanetary like travel and colonization.
Yeah.
And he was basically saying that he agrees we have a very specific window of time where we have the ability to get this right and kind of like become something like interplanetary, and we need to increase deterrence to allow that window to last longer. Because if you don't, that window can shut very quickly. It's like basically what he was saying. So it was interesting.
Interesting.
Okay, smooth transition. Totally didn't pause right there. Sorry, Nick. Carry on. Yeah.
So I guess So we've seen that the damage of these raids is limited, but the psychological impact is enormous. And the Germans were aware of this, and they want to bomb the ultimate psychological target, which is obviously London, which time largest, most important city in the world, the center of the British Empire, and the center of Britain's political class, financial class, business class, military class. It is the center of everything that the Germans were trying to attack. They had a number of attempts to bomb London in February and March, and again running into the same problems over and over again with weather, navigation, not being able to find their targets, mechanical problems on the airships. You had one airship in February that was flying towards Britain to bomb it, wanted to know where its position was because they got kind of lost, so they went down under the clouds, and they found themselves right above the Belgian army. The Belgian army getting their second outing on this podcast. The Belgians basically riddled the airship with small arms fire, with rifle fire. It had to turn around, and it was eventually destroyed by the wind. You had other airships flying into fog, abandoning missions, bombing random targets in France because they couldn't get to Britain. So effectively, the current class of airship that the Zeppelin company was building and that the German army and navy were operating just wasn't good enough. They were unreliable. They were hard to control. They were so dependent on the weather. They couldn't fly high enough. They couldn't fly far enough. So they had a pause. not a long pause, but a pause whilst they brought in the new class of Zeppelin, which was called a P-class. And really the major difference was that it was much bigger. They had 2 more gas bags, so that meant they could go higher, they could carry more bombs, and they could effectively be more useful. They're also more streamlined than previous airships, which is an important factor in the development of airships. And we'll see, if you think back to the very early Zeppelin designs, they're just like these quite thin tubes with rounded ends. At this point in the war, early 1915 with the P-class, you'll see they are more streamlined. They look more like a teardrop kind of shape. So these really move the dial. They move the Zeppelins from being ultra experimental aircraft into weapons that can actually do what is asked of them. And the first P-class was the LZ-38, and it was captained by a guy called Eric Linnartz. I think that's how you pronounce his name. And right away, this new class of airship had success. They were able to raid Ipswich and Southend. That's in East Anglia, on the eastern coast of England. And they were able to do that repeatedly over several raids. So you've got now the possibility that you can actually develop the kind of sustained strategic bombing campaign that the Germans had wanted to do. And in one of these raids, 26th and 27th of May 1915, the LZ-38 attacks Southend again, drops 70 bombs, it kills 3 people, wounds 3 people, but you've got a mass attempt, I say mass, a major attempt by British aircraft to try and intercept this airship. So 5 aircraft rose up, but they couldn't get to the right altitude, and they couldn't intercept this airship. So you've got airship technology really moving forward, airplane technology lagging backwards. They just can't get high enough to reach these airships.
What's fascinating about this is you said they dropped 70 bombs. Like, do we have any reference to how much each of those weighed or what the size of these were? Because I know like we have our modern day like thought when we hear bomb, like we think like modern day missile and it's a relatively large format. Like, are these like Molotov cocktails? Are these like metal casing? Like, I would be really curious to know like what the payload was that they were hauling around on these airships, even at this time.
So you had a mixture of bombs that they would carry, and actually we'll talk about later in that month. The largest bomb was it the next month anyway, but in a few months there'd be the largest bomb dropped on London so far, which is 300 kilograms. I'm not sure how about 660 pounds that would be. But these airships would carry a mixture of incendiary bombs, which relatively light, 25 pounds. They're filled with thermite and they're designed to basically ignite and cause fire. And then they would carry sort of standard high explosive bombs as well that would weigh a little bit more. And then you've got these massive bombs, 660 pounds or so, and they may carry 1 or 2 of something like that. But 70 bombs. And although it's sad that 3 people were killed and 3 wounded, there was no damage to buildings. So these bombs are not having a great impact. You'd expect 70 bombs to do quite a bit of damage.
Yeah, that is interesting. I was just thinking as you were talking about how, in a way, I'm almost glad that airships went out of vogue during the time period that they did, because I was thinking about like Vietnam and Korea and napalm, And I was just
Oh my
thinking about
goodness.
how
Yeah.
you could just rain fire
Oh,
from the sky off the
yeah.
side of an airship, and like the efficacy of that versus what we're talking about here is just like, and back then, I mean, it was being used all the time, which is just like, have you ever seen the videos of shooting those like napalm flamethrowers? They're shooting at like 200 meters away.
Wow.
It's insane. And so, sorry, that wasn't like totally relevant, but just as you were talking, I was kind of thinking about it, and I was like, yeah, those weren't very effective, really, if you think about it. But like, man, how destructive if there was something much
Yeah.
more effective being used. Insane.
Yeah, that I mean that'd be horrendous. But actually, just kind of a contrast with World War II, and I only found this out just last night. But our the house where my husband's parents live, which is in southwest London, was burnt by an incendiary bomb in a raid in World War II. And I found out
Wow.
for the first time last night because happened to be in a pub that had a map of this raid, and there were less than 70 bombs dropped by this airplane that was targeting the railway station, but the damage caused was massive, and you can follow. They had this map with where the bombs were dropped as he was coming in low on a line to the station, and you can walk around. I mean, I think it's crazy. Really, it shows how marked by history England certainly is, and London especially. But you can follow the line of the bombs by the houses which are newer than the ones surrounding them. So this house, Liam's parents' house, was built in the 50s. The house that was destroyed was built in the 1910s, and so on and so forth. But the bombs that was 1940 were significantly more destructive than the bombs that these airships were dropping, which in the early days they were lobbed out by hand.
Right.
So
Yeah.
they didn't even have any kind of sighting equipment to help them actually target stuff.
I thought you were going to say, Nick, that you were able to figure out that it was actually the site of one of the airship bombings. And I was
Oh,
going
I
to be
wish.
like,
I
the
wish.
only guy on Earth who would look at a property as a premium because it was part of an airship bombing.
So funny.
Well,
There's a
the
market
thing
for
is,
everything, Nick.
they on one of these early Zeppelin raids, actually one that did reach London, one of the airships turned back and threw their bombs out over a different target, and that target was Tunbridge, which is a town that I went to school in. And in my school, I was once told that there were bomb craters in our sports fields. So I've often wondered whether actually I went to school at a place that was bombed by an airship in World War One. I don't know. I don't know. Probably not. But that was
I'm just going to
the
start telling
story.
people that you did. And be like,
Yeah,
Nick,
why
yeah,
not?
he went to that school where it was bombed during World War One. Building your lore.
Yeah, exactly. The airship law. So yeah, so we've now got Zeppelins capable of doing repeat attacks on England. You also do start to get British technology trying to catch up with it, and one of the first things was searchlights. You know, now iconic things of certainly of World War II. But they were using searchlights from the first time in May 1915. And this LZ-38 airship we've been talking about was the first that was illuminated by searchlights over Dover. And then they sent up planes carrying incendiary bombs and hand grenades, of all things. The pilot had a couple of bombs and some hand grenades he was going to throw over the side. But again, this plane couldn't catch up with the airship. It couldn't catch up with them in terms of speed, and it couldn't catch up with them in terms of altitude. So the British can see these airships now, but they just can't catch up with them. Then at the end of May, the 30th and the 31st of May, you have the first raid on London, and this was again the LZ-38, commanded by Captain Linarts, who actually survived the war. I didn't realize this, but he ended up surviving the war and wrote an article about his experiences attacking London. This time they drop 120 bombs, and it's that mix of high explosives and incendiaries. This is kind of indiscriminate. It's random. They're not targeting anywhere in particular. A place called Stoke Newington got hit quite badly, which today is like the hipster capital of London. So it's like our equivalent of Williamsburg, New York, or something like that. You've got 7 people killed, 35 people injured, actually quite significant property damage this time, and you've got British airplanes being launched to intercept. Again, the airships are too high. They just can't capture them.
What was the altitude that these were flying at this time?
So they were the altitude at which they started to come into trouble, as in these airplanes came into trouble, was about 7,000 feet. So the airships can go higher than that, but later in the war, you have airships going to insane heights, like 25,000 feet, so high that that blood would run from their noses and their ears. It was just so high.
Because they're not in a pressurized cabin, I'd
Yeah,
imagine.
exactly that, and
Wow.
it becomes this desperate scramble for height, and you get these towards the end of the war. The Zeppelins being built are gigantic things built to be as light as possible so they can climb as high as possible.
I mean, to be fair, not much has changed around the contest for height, right? Because we've moved
Yeah,
past the stratosphere. Now we're literally sending things into orbit.
yeah,
Space satellites and lasers, and I mean, the U.S. has Space Force now. This idea of, we're going to be doing our battles in space.
yeah. Well, I guess it's the oldest military dictum, isn't it? That the high ground is the most important, and
Yeah.
you want to be there
Wild.
wherever it is.
Now we're going
So
to be putting
what?
lasers on the moon.
Well, yeah,
We got to
that's
go there
very
first.
Austin Powers, laser beams.
Um,
So
Pause,
you've got.
Nick. Really quick
Oh,
pause.
mm,
I have a stop right at 1 our time, so in like 7 minutes. Do we have a good jumping off point here, just to touch on that? I'm going to cut this, but do we have a jumping off point to touch on that news story really quick before we go?
yeah, why don't I draw to a close,
Okay.
and then we can go on to
Yeah.
the Kelluu news story. Is that what we want to go
Yeah,
to?
yeah, yeah. The Kelluu one.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Sorry to cut you off.
No worries.
All right. That was for my editing.
I wonder what you were doing. Where are we?
So I interrupted you about the altitude at which the airplanes couldn't reach the airships, and you said it was about 7,000 feet.
That's it. So you've got this increased level of activity from the Zeppelins. You've got unsuccessful attempts by the British to meet them, but it's at this time that the British government becomes really aware of the problems that the Germans are having. With navigation in particular. So they introduce what are called D-notices, which are notices to the press to not publish certain things, because they didn't want the Germans seeing anything in the newspapers about the locations of where their bombs were being actually dropped, what targeting information they might have, basically anything that might help them navigate or correct their past mistakes. So the press started to get closed down, but the main message that the civilians of Britain got was that London, their great capital, was no longer a safe place. And we'll see in the next episode how that ramps up in future raids.
You're so good at cliffhangers. It's amazing.
Love
Every
a cliffhanger.
time. Yeah, every time you nail it. Awesome.
You gotta find something.
No, yeah, no, I'm serious. You're good at it. Every time I'm like, all right, I'm hyped for next week. I wanna learn more. No, that's awesome. Thank you, Nick. Yeah, we will pick up there. That we'll take a pause on the history really quick. We did, before we get out of here this week, and sorry everybody listening, it is a little bit of a shorter episode than usual. However, we can make up for it with a super extra long episode some other time. And then you'll be like, hey, why did you make a 3-hour episode? And I'll be like, remember that time in week 10 when we gave you a short episode? And it all makes sense. But But we did want to touch on news, in the aerospace and airship world. Nick, I know we have a story about a Kelluu, who we've mentioned on the show before.
That's it. So, it's good news for Kelluu, who seem to be going from strength to strength, but they've raised 15 million euros in Series A funding from led by the NATO Innovation Fund. And this is for their autonomous airships, which operate in extreme environments and are used for continuous surveillance of anything you might want: borders, infrastructure. They enable threat detection. They're a very serious operation based out of Finland, and they're doing pretty well. So this is interesting news for them as they expand their fleet.
Yeah, I mean, it's ultimately great news for airships across the board. I mean, we talk about it all the time. Rising boat lifts all airship, or rising tides lifts all airships. I mean, they're being funded by NATO research. That just shows, product market fit basically for this technology or similar technologies, what we're working on. The key difference here is, our focus obviously being heavy lift and more of a supply chain focus, where theirs is more radar and surveillance. From what I can tell, their ships are not specifically built to be under heavy load.
No, their payload will be limited to the monitoring equipment that they need to carry out their mission.
Very cool. Nice to see that happen. Shout out to them. And it's great for the industry.
Absolutely.
Cool. All right. That is. Oh, I accidentally pinned Ryan's face. That is all I had this week. I know, again, this is a little bit of a shorter episode. But yeah, I mean, we will keep you guys updated. Of course, we'll cover history every week until we run out of history and get to the modern times. And then this will turn into a fictional podcast where we'll make up stories every single week of what the decades in the future look like.
I like that. So steampunk podcast.
Yeah. No,
Right.
It'll actually just become a game of Dungeons and Dragons, only with a steampunk focus. No, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. We still have a handful of decades left to talk about.
Yeah, we've got some of the best stuff yet to come. So.
Yeah, how we got here. And even like beyond the wars, we'll then talk about some of the other private enterprises and things, and like other projects that have attempted airships in the past. Just in the past, I guess. But I was going to say like more recent history to what we're covering right now. And we'll keep you updated on Float. No huge internal updates this week. Well, thanks,
Absolutely.
guys. Appreciate you jumping on as always.
Not a problem. Looking forward to next time.
All right. Yeah. See you
Cheers.
next week.
Bye-bye.
You're listening to Float on Air. Lift off. Float on.